For those of you who had faith in Silverwolf, take a moment and laugh at me. Laugh at all the people, all the doom posters, the naysayers that were doubting our girl right here. She's great, and let me tell you about it. What's going on, YouTube? Ledger here once again, this time at you again with some more Honkai Star Rail. And I want to take a moment and talk about Silverwolf. I've been testing her. I got her last night, been testing her last night, this morning, and seeing all the different things that she can do, seeing how she goes against the hard content. And she's been doing pretty good. And she's not only as good as I thought she was going to be, she's actually better. But I don't like to overhype too much, so let's talk about the pros and the cons of Silverwolf so far.
Why do low levels make the most noise?
Let's start off with the pros, because that's going to be much easier to talk about because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of pros. The first thing I want to talk about, honestly, in the previous videos I did talk about certain aspects of her, and there were certain things that were uncertain how she's going to work upon her release. And one of the things that we didn't see coming was an indirect buff, a gigantic indirect buff to Silverwolf come the 1.1 patch, and that was that they reduce the effect resistance of all the enemies, of all the higher level enemies. So this freed up Silverwolf quite a bit in terms of how much effect hit rate she really wants. This doesn't really affect any of the previous advice I've given in the previous videos, or in terms of, you know, the free to play light cone over signature light cone. But it does kind of broaden your options a little bit, right? Because now if you have good relics, then what you can do is you can kind of balance the different stats in order to be able to have her hit hard like a DPS, to hit hard and still take full advantage of her kit. So yeah, so that was a very big plus that they did for her right there, because just the effect hit rate requirement is just way lower. Now I'd say about 100, like 80 to 100. Effect hit rate is sufficient enough for her. The closer you get to 100, the better. But getting over 100 is not necessary anymore. Before, people wanted more than 100 effect hit rate and so on and so forth. But yeah, but with this change, what it did was it also just kind of helped out the fact that it helped out her signature light cone a lot, right? Because the difference between the signature light cone and the event light cone, one of the big differences was, because there's two reasons why you want that event light cone. It's because it gives more effect hit rate and it gives more energy. And she wants both of those things. Now granted, she still wants energy, right? But the extra effect hit rate that you're getting from the light cone isn't as necessary anymore. It is helpful. It does help out, and it does give you some more freedom on your actual build. So I still recommend it, but it kind of just lightens the load and it makes the signature light cone a little bit more enticing. So I'd say that's a pro, because the freedom of those builds is definitely a beautiful, beautiful thing. Now, another big thing, and I mentioned this in the previous video also, was when it comes to how her skill works. In the beta and in the tutorial, what would happen is that Silverwolf had a problem where if you had a weakness on your team, right, that was already on the enemy, and then you had another weakness that wasn't, what would happen is the weakness that's already on the enemy still had a chance to roll. Even so, once you put that first weakness on, let's say if you try to refresh her E and put the weakness on, it could put one of the other weaknesses on there. Now that is not the case anymore, right? She's always going to put the weakness that is missing on the enemy, unless all the weaknesses are already on the enemy, then that's a different story. But this is phenomenal. This is just a phenomenal thing that she does now, because now that just really opens up the different teams you can put her on, because now you have a sense of control over what weaknesses she's going to implant, so it's not always random. So having to be stuck to mono teams is a thing of the past. You don't have to worry about that at all because of how they did that, right? This is another big pro about her. It makes her much more flexible. It just makes her a much more future-proof unit because of that. Because now with the more units you get to use, the more flexible you can be with your teams, and the more situations you can put Silverwolf on your team in order to be able to use her to her full advantage. But one thing that I did underestimate about her too is how strong that defense debuff is, right? Because she debuffs defense with her bug, and she also debuffs defense with her ultimate. And when you're dealing with that, when you're using that, what ends up happening is I feel the amount of damage that because when I'm using her with my Sealy, the amount of damage that she boosts is similar to the amount of damage Bronya boosts my Sealy by. Bronya boosts damage by a lot. So if Silverwolf allows a similar amount of jump, that is fantastic. And that's why you're seeing a lot of videos, a lot of people saying that she's one of the best supports or the best support in the game. Am I going to call her the best? I don't know. I haven't thought about it. But she's up there enough to be top tier unit. She is fantastic. She has a lot of pros. Let's talk about her cons. Let's stop, just overhyping too much, and let's try and be real here and see what could be better, And one thing that I did actually mention in a previous video that it seems that to be the case now after I've done the testing. So back in my teams video, I mentioned one of these teams right here, right? And let me just change this now that I actually have her, so not to add confusion here. So this was one of the teams that I recommended, right? So I still recommend this team. We'll pretend that March is Japard, but yeah, right? Now, in this situation, before her release, my assumption was that I have 3 ice units and then I have 1 quantum unit. So that means there's a 75% chance that I'm going to roll for ice when it comes time to do the weakness, and then there's a 25% for it to be quantum. That is not the case. In this case, it is just counts the however many elements, and it chooses by random of how many elements you have. So it's a 50-50 between quantum and ice in this situation, or what her skill is going to do. I personally don't like this. It's not that bad because let's say you have a team where there's just one character, one element, and you want that one character to get the element switch, then that allows an equal chance for you to get that, right? Let's say Yang Cheng here, and he's the only ice on the team, but you want him to get the weakness. He's now equally able to get that as the other teammates, even though you have stacked with other elements. So in a way, it can kind of help with flexibility, but I prefer being able to completely control that by just saying, hey, I want ice, so I'm going to stack ice on the team, right? But that's okay, right? It doesn't really change the team comps that she does have, mainly because even though it's still going to be 50-50, regardless, the less elements still increases your chances, right? Because let's say I had 4 different elements on this team. If I had 4 different elements on this team, then my chances of getting that specific element I want is pretty low. But now if I have 3, it gets higher. And if I have 2 elements, now it gets even higher. So this is still a good team comp for her. But it's just that it's not stacked as much as my favor as I preferred it to be, right? So that's one con. Another con is that she is single target. So with her being single target, it's not really that big of a deal. It just depends on what team you want to put her on. And it does make sense because of how much she does debuff enemies. But the fact of the matter is that she is single target. So if you're dealing with situations with lots of mobs, you're going to be thinning your skill points thin if you're trying to plant all these weaknesses, all these different enemies, trying to make sure it's all the right weakness and so on and so forth. Yeah, so if you want her to be able to help you in those AoE situations, if you're ever struggling in those type of situations, she's not the one that's gonna be able to do that here for you. She is somebody where you are going against a strong enemy, a high level enemy, and you focus her debuffs on that main strong enemy. That's just how it is. But yeah, but then the last thing, which is kind of stupid, but it has to be brought to the forefront. She's not a healer, right? That's another con, right? Now later on, this doesn't really mean anything in the game as you become veterans and as we're playing this game for more and more. But we're in the beginning of the game, and we don't have a lot of healers. So at the end of the day, if you have an account and you don't have a second healer, no matter how great she is, no matter how much better she's going to be than the healer in the future of the game, if that does happen, it doesn't matter because you don't have another healer, and it doesn't matter how much more damage you're dealing. As soon as the enemy goes, you get hit and you're dead, right? So that's the thing too. So at the end of the day, still, when it comes to Lacha, or I guess that's how you pronounce his name, Lacha, and Silverwolf, if you don't have that second healer, then you kind of want to get that other healer, right? So that's another thing. That's another con with her. She's just not a defensive unit. She's an offensive unit. We have plenty of offensive units, right? So that's the thing when it comes to that. But those are just some pros and cons that I did want to get out the way when it comes to Silverwolf. I have had a lot of fun testing her. You know, I can't wait to make some more content on her. She is great. I love her in my CLE team. You know, if I had more resources, I would build many other teams and put her on those. But if you want to know more about the teams, go ahead and check out that video that I made, the Silverwolf teams video. It's a good one right there. So yeah, so let me know what you guys think. Definitely, if you like the content, definitely like the video. Comment your thoughts down below. How did you guys do when it came to your Silverwolf polls? You know, is there anything that you found out that new about Silverwolf that you might want to share? And also, too, subscribe to the channel so you can get more content like this. So with that, I'll end it here. Legend out.